A Little Taste of Perdition. Macon descended the spiral stairs with one hand on the cold, rough stone wall to his left. Small rings of coals burned in several niches, their fragrant smoke curling through the air like black, serpentine tongues. His leather soles shushed along the steps, loud in the tight, silent space. The descent felt like it took him a small eternity, but as always, it happened faster than he expected. Before him stood a huge, iron-banded door. It was carved with 1,000 names, the letters engraved into the wood with great care and artistry. The boards were also stained with blood and marred by the scars of claws. If one listened closely, sharp cries could be heard from behind that door. For a moment, Macon was alone at the bottom of those stairs. Then a shadow materialized, tearing itself away from the darkness that clung to the walls. The figure was huge, its back bent, and its form covered from head to toe in a cowled robe like a penitent monk. Blood stained the hem of that robe, and the smell of a charnel house wafted from beneath the heavy folds of fabric. It extended an arm, and a pale hand slid out from the end of the sleeve. It was hairless, and somehow obscene-looking, tipped with black claws that shone in the dimness. Without a word, Macon withdrew a pair of gold coins and pressed them into the creature's palm. He was careful not to let its flesh brush against his skin. The hand closed, withdrawing back into the folds of the robe before emerging once more with a huge iron key. In the dimness, it was impossible to tell if it was rusted, or if the stains along it were from another source altogether. The shadowy figure turned in a swirl of its robes and placed the key in the heavy lock. It opened, swinging inward. A wave of smoke, heat, and noise washed over Macon, and he stepped through the door into a scene of hell. The stone chamber was wide and deep, lit by iron braziers of burning coals. Figures writhed on the ground, and the crack of whips mingled with cruel laughter and sobbing, begging moans. Humanoid figures moved through the smoke, their heels and hooves sharp on the ground. Some of them bore bat-like wings, others curled horns like rams. Some wore the haunting visage of fallen angels, and others had golden, cat-like eyes that glimmered in the shadows. Most barely glanced up from their tasks, paying Macon no heed.
Well.
A voice whispered in his ear. Macon felt claws at his throat, and soft, yielding flesh pressed against his back.
What have we here?
Macon reached up and pulled back his hood. His ringlets of dark hair spilled out, and his bright, green eyes flashed in the light. He turned his head and looked at the creature who'd slid up behind him, as quiet as a whisper. She was long and lithe, with skin the color of freshly spilled blood, and a mane of hair that writhed like serpents. She flicked her forked tongue over her full bottom lip, and gave him a smile full of wicked promise.
"My soul is spoken for,"
Macon said softly.
Is that so?
The she-devil asked, grazing her claws up Macon's neck and cupping his chin. She drew him in for a long, deep kiss, her legs snaking around his hip as she wrapped herself around him. He groaned, his hand gripping the back of her neck, squeezing hard until she purred. Then their lips parted.
"It is so,"
Macon said. He blinked and gave her a smile.
"However, I believe the rest of me is currently available, should you wish to make use of it."
Lashara threw back her head and laughed, her shoulders shaking with mirth. Macon slid an arm around the small of her back, pulling her against him as he cut her laughter off with another kiss. She purred again, but pushed at his shoulders to make him stop.
I have one more session tonight. Then I'm all yours.
Macon nodded and pressed a coin into her palm. She glanced down at it, and her eyes widened. Even in the smoky dimness, she could tell the coin's glimmer was platinum, not silver.
I'll be waiting,
he said.
I'm counting on it.
Lashara said, dragging her teeth down Makon's neck. She was half a step away, her claws almost releasing his cloak before she turned and glanced back at him.
Do your companions know you come here?
They think I'm off praying,
Makon said, chuckling.
Well, I'll make sure you invoke all the gods whose names you know.
Lashara said, taking a step back from him.
I wouldn't want to make a liar out of you. Now would I?
Heavens forbid,
Makon said, idly touching the holy symbol about his throat. It was heavy as ever, but no light shone in this darkness. There was plenty of wickedness here, no doubt, but it was of the purely mortal kind which the Lady of Love and Light rarely concerned herself with.
I'll just get myself a drink and relax.
Do that.
Lashara said, turning and walking toward the maze of hanging silks toward the rear of the pit. Her hips and tail swayed alluringly, and sparks leaped from her heels as she strutted. Makon watched her go until she had vanished behind the red screens. It wasn't long after that he heard the whisper and crack of a whip, and a howl that was just barely muffled by a leather gag. He walked toward the bar, chuckling to himself. If his companions saw him in a place like this, they'd surely think he'd lost his faith, his mind, or both. Perhaps he would invite them when next they were all in the city together. It might be worth it just to see the look on their faces.